Thank you. This group really doesn't need any introduction, but I prepared one, so you're getting it anyway. Please give another warm welcome to the team from Mythic Quest. From the far right, Jessie Ennis. Danny Pudi. Ashley Burch. David Hornsby. Naomi Ekperigin. Charlotte Nicdao. And Rob McElhenney. First of all, thank you so much for being here and for previewing this awesome episode, which I will get to in a moment. But while I was preparing for this morning, I went on the Google machine and I Googled workplace icebreaker questions. So I have a few to break the ice. And anyone can just sort of shout out their answers. This one is stolen from James Lipton inside the Actors Studio. What occupation would you most want besides the one that you have?
Every actor says therapist, right? Like every actor thinks they'd be a great therapist. Well, I do anyway.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't want to know what you're going through.
I want to design furniture.
Oh, man.
Run an animal rescue?
Oh, that's good.
I'd be a dancer.
I'd be his backup dancer.
Astronaut.
No.
That'd be cool.
You could be.
Thank you. Thank you.
This one, I think, is maybe the most revealing of the icebreaker questions. What is the most used app on your phone?
Right.
Calendar.
Oh, God.
I'm so ashamed to admit this, but I'm a new mum, and it's Reddit. All I do is look up other people's advice on how to raise my child.
Oh, I don't know. What game am I playing now? Yeah. Could be something simple like Woodoku. It's like Sudoku with wood blocks. It doesn't sound fun when I say it, but try it. Try it.
Oh, sure. I don't need it, but I'll use it anyway. Notes app. Too many collaboration. It's a tricky app, but yeah, there's a lot of notes going back and forth.
I want to say it's something like Signal or Gmail, but it's probably TikTok.
Well,
wait, you have.
Let's see here. Right now, it's probably a tie between Duolingo and Block Blast.
Oh.
I changed the light bulbs in my house to the Hue Phillips light bulbs. You can change the color. And every time I swipe, it's like, do you want to go on the Hue Phillips app? So I think that's my most frequented app. I change the colors in my house all the time.
This one is from the Screen Gab questionnaire that we do in every week's edition. What is your go-to comfort watch? Like the film or TV show that you go back to when you just need to be
Gilmore
in a good
Girls.
place?
Gilmore Girls all the time. Like,
I see you, Jessie.
far too frequently.
I go to Golden Girls, so we're starting a theme.
I see you too, Rob.
Mine is mostly Friends, but it also used to be Community, and now I can't watch it as much because I feel like I'm being weird. Like I used to go to sleep to that show, and now I'm like, Danny's my friend.
One of my jams, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Oh. Kick back, man. Let's get into it.
I'll take both. Thank you. It feels natural. I don't know why.
Before we came out here tonight, they talked to us in the back about how we all had to share a mic. And now somehow David has two.
I'll be glad. Can I answer the icebreaker? Yeah. Yes, Queer Eye. I enjoy Queer Eye. I like when they make people over. No, but it does make me. It always makes me emotional at the end. Which so my wife and I, that's our go-to.
Mine was Parks and Recreation for a really long time, but I watched it so much that I know all of the dialogue, and I feel like I can't watch it anymore. So then I switched to New Girl.
MASH, probably. Just, it's comforting. But we're super into Traitors right now. Super into Traitors right now.
Gilmore Girls. Still.
Okay, at the risk of causing controversy with our last icebreaker question, it's the zombie apocalypse. Which 3 people on this dais are on your zombie apocalypse team?
Jessie.
Yeah.
I was about to say, that's so mean to make you pick 3 because then I feel like you're really leaving people out. I'll take Jessie, but maybe Ashley. I feel like you've got knowledge.
Really? Because I was like, I'm out immediately.
I
like,
think you've got
I hear the zombie apocalypse. It's 1 to the brain.
You'd be
and
so
then
nice to
that's
the
it.
zombies. You'd be like, "Do you guys want a baked good? They're gluten free."
I'll take you, Rob, because you've
Yeah.
got some brawn. So,
Absolutely.
like, you could do some fighting off of the zombies. Yeah.
Okay, obviously, Rob, I know you got a bunker, bitch. Okay? I know there's a bunker somewhere, so I'm doing what you're doing. Okay? I'm going to be at Rob's house.
You gotta
okay?
go more subtle. Say it's about the brawn.
I'll go Rob, okay? Would definitely go Ashley, because I don't know, I think you would translate some of that video game knowledge into actual fighting. And then Daniel, you're wily. You're wily. You're fitting in crevices. So I think you're my 3rd.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go Rob for his leadership, Ashley for her laugh, and I'm gonna go Megan Gans because we work really
Where's
well
Megan
together.
Gans? Megan!
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Director of the episode, next
yeah,
to her
Megan would be
husband who
good.
co-wrote it with her. Whee!
Yeah, Megan would find a way to get food. Yeah, and resources.
She thought she'd get away from all of your eyes by sitting in the back, but now I think we're just drawing more attention to her. Yes.
I would choose death. I don't think I could. I wouldn't last.
I don't think I'd last either. I feel like this is a nice side of the panel here. I'm going to go with David, Ashley, and Jessie. I feel like we're going to die, but it's going to be fun.
I would call you first because we're closest in proximity. We live close to each other. And then I know from experience now that I call Naomi because she knows the right mask to wear. She's going to have the best tips on air purifiers.
Absolutely.
And I also would have to, well, oh no. This is a.
picked me, Jessie.
I was gonna pick you, and then I thought, will I lose brownie points with our boss? But yeah, I picked Charlotte because she also is just very smart, and the Australian sensibility kind of approaches problem solving from a different angle. And Rob, I pick you too.
We don't have to go down the line again, but I am curious. This episode for me was not only fun in its own right, but it's also a really great sort of episode to show to someone who hasn't watched Mythic Quest before, to introduce them to the characters, because all the characters are sort of introducing themselves to Storm. And it made me think about how characters evolve in comedies in particular, and how acting characters evolve in comedies. For anyone who wants to volunteer, how would you say your character has changed the most in the 4 seasons of Mythic Quest? Or how has your understanding of what makes them tick changed?
I feel I'd like to hear your answer to that, because I feel like your character has changed so much more than any of the other characters on account of the pregnancy, amongst other things.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you. Well, I feel like especially at the beginning of season 1, it was very much pitched as like an underdog, right? Like she's the lovable and sort of, you know, a little bit manic, but ultimately you're rooting for her. And then I feel like we talked at the very beginning about this idea that she has an ego that's as big as Iron's, but it's just never been given the space to become monstrous. And then I think we gave her the space to become quite monstrous throughout the next couple seasons. And then this season, it's almost like she has had this personal growth where she's decided that's not who she wants to be. And she's almost done a full 180 and been like, I'm going to have a personal life and I'm going to see what romance is like. And, you know, I'm going to lean into this very different side of myself that I've ever been at Mythic Quest and in my collaboration relationship with Ian. And so, yeah, I don't even know if that answers the question, but yeah, I feel like it's been a big evolution. And where it goes this season as well is like a whole nother level, I think.
I think Rachel's gotten dumber. In a way that Megan's clapping. In a way that I really love. I think we found that it's funniest when Rachel has very strong convictions and absolutely nothing to back them up. So that's the direction we went in.
I also noticed while I was rewatching past seasons and watching this season to prep for this, I can't think of another TV show where I see so many of the cast credits also have writing credits, also have directing credits. I would just be curious, like, what does that do for you creatively and personally as a team to feel like you have the opportunity to play all these different roles on a set and not just roles on screen?
How many times can we do this?
I love the bit, actually. Yes, our show is unique in that we do have a lot of actors. Charlotte directed this year. Ashley, you directed 2, right? I'm sure by the end, if we're granted another season, we'll have everyone doing it. But it adds to the show. It certainly helps, even coming from Sunny, when you're writing and you're able to know your actors, especially so when it's you. It really adds because you can write to and really take ownership of the show from the very beginning, the entire creative process. So to bring even the actors on and direct, it's just additive that everyone sort of takes ownership of it and brings their own perspective to it. Getting notes from Charlotte about my own character on an episode that I wrote, and I never thought of some of these things, was so fun because it was like, oh, right. Yeah, no, that's what I meant, obviously. Yes. Yeah, let me do that one more time. So that kind of thing just really helps flesh out what the show is.
And it makes it so precious to us as well, I think, because it's not just the act of getting to contribute in different ways, it's the fact that everybody's trusting each other to contribute in these different ways. It really just means that it's not just an ownership over the show, it's like, it becomes a treasure to you. That's how I feel.
David, you brought up Sunny, so I have a question for Rob, which is a little more on the serious side. A lot of the conversation, entering, during, since the strikes has been about the kind of decline of the longer-running series, of larger episode orders. You've been part of 3 current series. You are part of 3 current series that have 4 seasons or more. How would you describe kind of the pressures more broadly in the industry to make shows shorter? And how do you and your team kind of resist those pressures and end up with, these shows that are longer running?
Honestly, I think we don't think about there being a life span for anything that we're working on. We're just trying to make the best episodes of any particular project that we can. And we always continue to ask ourselves year after year, specifically on Sunny, but now it's becoming the case for a lot of the other shows as well, do we still have something to say? Is there still an audience? Is there somebody willing to pay for it? That's a very important part of it. And are we still having fun? And if all of those boxes get checked, then we feel like we have, just the incredible privilege to be able to do those things. And if those boxes get checked, we say yes, and we keep doing it.
Jessie, I think probably like many people in the audience, I'm slightly obsessed with Joe. Yeah.
Thank you. Me too.
I was wondering while I was rewatching, like, what were the initial conversations like with Rob and Megan and the team, like who this character was and how you kind of found this particular version of Joe?
Megan? What were our conversations like? I remember Rob called me an asshole one day. He was like, I have a feeling like you know how to be an asshole. And I took that as a great compliment because I understand that he has an interest in assholes. And
As television characters. Not anatomically.
oh, duh.
Jeez. Well, I feel like Jessie's casting is one of the best stories of the show because that character didn't exist in the original pilot. There was no Joe. Jessie came in and read for a number of different characters, and we kept bringing her back in because we were like, well, she's not quite right for that character, but maybe there's something, okay, let's try this one, let's try that one. And then eventually we just got to a point where we realized she's so good, and there's not something that is a clear fit in the current draft, so let's write her in. So we wrote a character based on something, that a dynamic that we hadn't seen in The Office in the original draft of the pilot, and something that we thought Jessie could hit out of the park, which she obviously did from day one.
And I remember at the beginning being like, why did they write this for me? Like, what? And then as we've gone on, I'm like, well, obviously, it's because I'm a psychopath. And like for season 1, when we had to do press, they'd be like, what do you have in common with your character? And I'd be like, nothing at all. And now I'm like, we're the same person. I've learned a lot from her.
I did want to make sure that I asked a couple questions specifically about the Villain's Feast. Charlotte, I want to start with you. So Poppy describes her relationship with Ian as like an overbearing father and daughter. And then Ian counters with, no, it's like protective big brother, younger sister. How do you understand the dynamic between them? Like, what is the thing that sort of you think
What's
Poppy...
the age difference?
I do not recall. No. I mean, we've talked about, we think of it as like a sibling-y thing, right? I feel like that's always how we try to play the rivalry and the camaraderie. But that was I don't think that was in the script originally, right? I think Megan gave me that old. Oh, that was your joke? You won't even take her. So humble. Right?
Well, yeah, I mean, all jokes are born out of insecurity, and I think that's a very specific specific insecurity of our dynamic, yes. That I guess biologically, yes, I could be your father. I just don't like to accept the fact that that is true.
That's not true. I don't think that's, I mean, you could, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was promiscuous. According to Jessie. Sorry, let's not go back to that.
Everyone knew what I meant.
what do you think is the thing that draws them to each other, and what is the thing that kind of enrages them about each other? I think that one of the things that I love about that relationship is like that does often describe some of your best workplace relationships or sibling relationships.
I mean, I've always thought of them as like creative soulmates. Like they are made for each other. They need each other. They probably will never be able to live without each other. And the like core of who both of them are creatives, are artists. And so it's like the core of who each of them are like twin flames. And so I think it's like we've sort of said from the beginning, it's like, oh, will they, won't they? But like, will they, won't they be able to make something great rather than it being romantic? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they believe that they're in service of something greater than themselves, and so they're willing to recognize that they need each other and that they ultimately love each other, but they don't like each other. And those are always the best relationships to write, because two people stuck together in this impossible situation is what creates conflict and then leads to comedy. But I think the foundation has to feel honest and true, and I think that these two people really believe that what they're creating is net positive for the world, and to do that they have to make the sacrifice of spending all day and every day with each other.
Ashley, Imani can't be here because she just had a baby, so I'm going to let you speak for both Rachel and Dana. What a great kind of twist ending to the murder mystery episode to have it like tee up a Mythic Quest wedding. Talk about the process of sort of breaking this episode and how you ended up from party to proposal.
Yes, so I'm going to point you guys out again. Sorry, Megan and Humphrey in the back. And I were in the room for this particular episode. And the impetus of it was we were in the point in the season where we felt like Ian and Storm should interact in some way. And so we conceived it originally as, okay, this is a way for Ian to kind of corner Storm and figure out what he wants to know about this person who is now his partner's partner. And as we went into the breaking of it, we just kept running up against, none of it was quite working. We were like, well, Storm's the villain, but you don't know him well enough for that to be satisfying. And then Ian's the villain, but you see that coming. And Poppy's the villain, you see that coming. And so we had been blue skying before, and I had pitched for a different episode that maybe Dana and Rachel get engaged. And I think Megan probably had like a 3 a.m. and woke up and was like, that should be the ending. Like, that would be such a satisfying way to solve that mystery. You wouldn't see it coming. And so once that fell into place, this episode that we had been banging our heads against for weeks seemed to actually make sense. And I said this in a bunch of interviews we did, but Megan is such a huge escape room fan, Agatha Christie fan. She's so into puzzles. She's got a mind, like, she just knows how to do this stuff. And so I think all of us were like, we have to do this for Megan. We have to break this episode for Megan. And we did. And it was so difficult, but it was really, really satisfying. And then the shooting of it was just a joy, which was great, too. Our crew at one point all dressed up in, like, formal attire as well, which was very sweet.
It comes across as, like, the most fun days to be on set that you could. Was Imani aware of your idea from the outset, or did you get like a big reveal moment where you're like, Rachel and Dana are getting married?
I think I probably shouldn't admit this, but I tell Imani a lot of stuff because we're really close. So I may have spoiled it. I did. I totally did, because she was like, "Who proposes?" And originally it was me, and she was like, "Okay." And then it was like, "No, it's obviously Dana." And then I think that works a lot better anyway.
Naomi, I wanted to ask you, in part because I think I trust Carol to be the least BS of anyone in the group. Of the Mythic Quest cast, who would win at Traitors and who would get murdered first?
Oh my God. Okay, cast only. So Gans is not in it for now, but I think that's really it. Who would get killed first? It would probably be David. You know what I mean? Yeah, see, he agrees. Who would win? Oh, my Lord. That's tricky. That's very tricky. Jessie. Yay! Absolutely.
Jessie did tell me in the green room that she watches a lot of Traitors, so
A lot. And we played it once during the pandemic, and it got really bad. It crossed some lines. I felt really bad afterwards, but I won.
David, I was curious if you could talk about the pop culture references that maybe you use on set that could have possibly inspired some of the events of this episode, or did those come from the folks who are not on stage?
What I say better be good, is all I have to say. I love the character. A lot of what is in the show makes its way into the show from the writer's room and me usually complaining or whether it be about, the 90s, my character love of the 90s. We certainly do a bit where I sing a lot, sing once, I don't know, every season. But yes, I think my... Oh, yes. Where is that? What episode is that in now?
Two.
2. Right. So we have a joke where I complain about bibimbap and delivery and how no one's accountable in the deliveries anymore. So if someone messes up your bibimbap order, you can't call the restaurant. The restaurant tells you to call the Uber service, and the Uber service tells you to call the restaurant. There's no accountability, and it's probably just taken from a rant in the writers' room. I 100%. I had to flip out about a bibimbap in the writer's room, and that the wrong sauce was delivered, and you can't eat a bibimbap with ranch, and this is just insulting. And someone said, "What is a bibimbap? And what is happening?" So these little moments make their way in. But that is, again, to your question, and if I could get one more mic, thank you so much, because I have more to say. No, to your question, that is what. Having the writer who's then acting and we make it trickles down to the show, and I will now return the mics.
Wait, before you do, I have sort of a follow-up,
More mics than we
Mythic
started.
Quest fan question, which is, what is the origin story of the kind of annual backstory episode? Because as someone who loves a flashback episode, I love that it's become almost sort of a tradition to look forward to. Can anyone kind of explain how that started, and then also how it became, every season having that great moment?
I think it's just always born out of trying to do something different. And that's always the challenge of making a TV show, is that you want to both make sure that people are showing up for the experience that they're used to week after week after week, and so you have to make it feel organic to the story and organic to the show, and yet still continue to surprise them. So the only way that you can usually do that is by changing the tone, and maybe just taking a different look through a prism of a different time period or a character's point of view, and certainly changing the tone makes is a really important way of doing that. And so it's just us sitting around saying, okay, how can we continue to flesh out what's happening with the main story by maybe telling another side story, a backstory, a side story, something that took place maybe 35 years ago, and you don't know exactly why it's tying into what's happening in current events, but it is in some meaningful way by the end of the season, so that it feels both thematically true and emotionally true as well.
If I can say, I think also just talking about Rob for a second and where this, how this show started, I think it was an extension of his interest to do something different and dynamic. It started off with that, the curiosity, which I think he certainly brings to the table. And that's an extension, art is an extension of ourselves, and that was an extension of his curiosity to be like, well, let's dive into something different. Let's not just do the workplace sitcom. I think it started there. And I think this episode we saw tonight is an extension of Megan's curiosity and her talent towards, as Ashley said, this escape rooms and Agatha Christie, and this is a departure episode for us. It's a departure for our budget. But it's a departure episode for us, and we have another departure episode that's, has a bit more pathos and humanity to it in terms of outside of our comedic tone, but that's an extension of Megan and her curiosities. And so what you're seeing is an extension of ourselves up here in some way, and that is a reflection of the people behind the camera.
David, what are you curious about?
Napping. No, I don't know.
Talking about mixing it for viewers is a good segue to, Danny, you were on, by my reckoning, 110 episodes of Community. And Charlotte can vouch for me when I say that it's a classic, as I think many people in this audience would agree. What do you think is the secret to keeping a long-running sitcom fresh, both for the team that makes it and for the audience, having been through it once before?
Thank you. I think I think the first thing I have to say is just thank you to Megan Gans and Rob and David and our writers, Ashley, for keeping it fresh, keeping it surprising. Megan and I work together on Community, and so she's the one who originally texted me about this. Was like, hey, we're working on the show. I think there's this weird character. Weird. He collects human hair. Can you humanize him? We'll see. But I think there's a willingness to be curious. We're always talking. I think it's all the things that we've been talking about here, writing, directing, being in scenes, taking notes from your fellow actors. We're constantly changing and adapting, and it just keeps it really fresh. And I think we're always trying to make each other laugh, too, which I think is great. So it doesn't feel so predictable. And I think that really helps. I think you could feel it. I think I could feel it when I watch a show that they're having a good time. And I hope the audience can feel that we're having like a really good time. I love this show, and I think it's part of really loving it, and I think constantly trying to make it better. Unfortunately, it means Megan wakes up at 3 a.m. with ideas, but I think that keeps it fresh. It constantly keeps it fresh.
Rob, you mentioned earlier, if we get another season, have you thought about the end game, what it might look like, and how many more seasons you might want to do?
Yeah, I feel like I alluded to earlier those boxes getting checked, and I feel like this show definitely checks all of those boxes for us. We still really love each other. We love making the show. We feel like we have a lot to say. Sunny is a satire. This show is supposed to feel a lot more like real life, and workplace dynamics, workplace environments are just a part of our culture and something that we have to navigate. So there's always going to be stories to investigate there. So I think we could do it for another 20 years.
That's great to hear. If everyone could remain seated while the cast leaves, but also give a huge round of applause to the team from Mythic Quest. Thank you all so much. This was so fun.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.